537,200 instead of 337,200.
I wrote that down, but what section of that? That's 7.4.
Yep.
So I'd move that council adopt the September 4th, 2019 regular council meeting minutes as amended regarding the item dollar amount on 7.4.
Very good, thank you. And all in favor of that amendment? Thank you. Sorry. And does anybody else have any other changes for the minutes? No? Okay, can I get a motion to?
I did it.
Oh, you did? Okay, my apologies, sorry. All right, let's go on to 7.1, which is the community access card policy. And Linda Bernicki.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. So I'm here tonight to present the Community Access Card Policy number 5104. I'm happy to do a presentation or go right into questions, whichever you prefer.
If you just want to kind of explain, explain for the public what the program is about.
Okay, so the Community Access Card is an opportunity for low-income residents to access Town of Strathmore programs and services at a reduced cost. And so how the program would work is that the access card would be used for drop-in registered or membership programs, but not for facility rentals. So for example, swimming lessons, activities at the sports center, same with activities shinny at the family center, any of the programs that we offer at the hub or FCSS. So it's going to be based on a sliding scale. So it's dependent on income and the number of people in your family. It would have to be renewed every year because it is based on income, and we would take applicants ongoing. It's a great opportunity as a poverty reduction initiative to assist people with low income for their mental health and wellness and physical being to actively participate in programs and services they might not otherwise participate in.
Very good. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you for that, Lynn. This is not the first time this has been before council, and I just want to say how much I appreciate this program coming in. I'm just completely supportive. The only question I have is, how are we going to get the word out on this? Do you have any, have there been any thoughts or direction in that regard, how to get the word out that this is, other than, of course, through our website and Facebook, et cetera?
So what we're going to do is exactly do that, but we will also work with other service providers. Okay. So a lot of the other service providers are working with residents in those family situations, and they'll be able to do a direct referral to the town to assist them.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So following up from Councillor Sobel's comments, when it comes to the community access card, the chart that you have included in the business package or in the agenda package on page 19 and 20, the actual cost then of the card will show up at some point in a listing for the public, so that they would be able to know exactly what they were paying.
So if you're asking if the actual cost of the card for an individual in this income bracket, we would be able to do an average, but it's also dependent on individual stories.
I understand.
Right? Yeah. So it may, that may be the overall, but it may sway depending on the individual stories.
And certainly, I think it's my opinion only, but I think it's valuable because I think the intimidation factor of it would be too great otherwise. But if people actually see that there's an affordability process and they say that, that there's a range, and again, it is dependent on the discretion, I think that'd be wonderful, and I'm very appreciative of this. I think it's a great addition to our community.
Thank you, and we'd be really happy once we get to that process to bring that information back to council so you can see it before it goes out to the public.
I just trust you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Linda. I I think it's absolutely amazing. I'm very proud that we've gone down this road. I just want a little bit more clarification on how it's going to run. Is it going to run from like January to December? Is that how you're going to allocate it? Because when do you have to reapply? I'm concerned as to how that goes. When somebody buys one throughout the year, what if they get one in November and then they have to reapply again in January, or not till after the tax year?
Yeah, what we plan on doing is having it for a full year. So somebody applies for it in June, it won't come due until June, right?
Okay.
And so even though it's based on the previous year's taxes, we can still figure something out and work with the people to have that.
Okay.
So we
Awesome.
talked about that, and we thought it would be too convoluted to put restrictions on it, especially with new people to our community or people who didn't know they could apply for it and then want to apply for it. So,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I really want to thank you. I really think the benefits are so worth the time and effort that we put into this. I like the even playing field for everybody. I think everybody should have access to the facilities and to the lessons and whatever. I was just ready with the motion.
Okay. If I could just say, I'm very appreciative of your group for doing this and for taking this this far. And I guess, can you tell me, like, will this apply to the handy bus as one of the services that's covered?
At this time, it won't, because the handy bus is not a town of Strathmore service. It's
Oh,
the
I
handy
see.
bus
Okay.
committee. However, one of the goals of this is to have other service providers join in. So if the handy bus at one point decided that they wanted to be a part of this, we would be happy to facilitate that. Same as if the library for library fees and that, we would be happy to figure something out with them to facilitate it.
That's actually an excellent idea, so, yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you. I move the council adopt the policy number 5104, being the community access card.
All right, all in favor of that motion?
Oh, is it on there?
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. And, oh, do we need to revise that then?
No,
Okay.
I think so, no?
Okay.
we don't need to do procedure and policy. I'm just going to talk to us again.
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I'm just not clear on what was questioned. You do not, no.
Thank you. And we'll move on to item 7.2, the Child, Youth, and Family Hub Business Plan update. Ms. Hughes.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. We are here this evening to provide an overview of the Hub Business Plan, which we will bring to Council for adoption on October 16th, 2019.
So we wanted to start our presentation with a review of the last year and a half. We've been diligent in implementing government legislation and town of Strathmore policies and procedures. And in addition to best practices when working with children and youth. We're really proud to share that connecting youth and families to the services they need most has been ongoing. And so our supportive information and referral is an enhanced service that we've been providing over the last year and continue to provide. We've increased our partnerships and have opened the doors to some non-traditional partnerships, such as a ministerial association and different businesses around town. We continue to develop a communication plan to ensure we are targeting each group with their uniqueness and understanding of how we can get the information out to them. And of course, as you're aware, and you have we have a new brochure, and we also went through the process of a name change.
So all these steps have been taken to achieve our objectives. A SOAR analysis is a powerful tool to bring stakeholders together to recognize the potential of the organization and create a shared vision of the future. Building on strengths requires less effort and resources than trying to correct weaknesses. The technique is more action-oriented than a SWOT analysis and is focused on outcomes. So we have some really great strengths that we'd like to highlight tonight. Council's commitment to programming for children, youth, and families provides a clear strategic direction which supports staff to develop, implement, and evaluate quality programs for youth and families within our community. We value community engagement, healthy relationships, active living, research-based programming, excuse me, inclusive services, mentorship, and leadership. These values guide program development and meets the developmental needs of youth participants. Excuse me. Programs and services are developed based on the needs of the community, and this is gained through feedback and surveys, which allows all voices to be heard.
So a very important part of the business plan that we will be bringing back is how does the business plan speak to evaluation and outcomes? What are we going to measure against it? How do we know that we are going to be successful? So the PowerPoint is only a snapshot of the business plan that we're going to be bringing back. But to answer some of those questions, we're going to ensure the voice of youth is heard, because it's not only a priority of ours, but it's a priority of the community, and it's a priority of the youth that we serve. And so some in short-term, long plans that we're looking at to address it is to ensure that we're following best practices when we're doing evaluations, and we're measuring based on our community and not communities that aren't like our community. And in addition to that, we really want to ensure that when we're doing that, that we're continuing to meet the needs of the community based on the needs assessment that was done a few years ago, and also council's strategic plans. And then in the changing environment in our community, we want to make sure that those are some key things that we use to evaluate on.
I'd like to provide some statistics for the year so far. So we're looking at January to August 2019. We've had an expanded opportunity to provide more programs for all ages. Our Teen Night program, we've seen between January and August over 60 participants, and those are all the unique numbers. Our After School Club has 50 unique individuals. Winter Camp saw 20. The Tools for School program, which provides supplies for children from low-income families, we had 37 unique youth served in that. We had 217 youth participate in summer camps this year, and 12 families received over $2,000 in subsidy for summer camps this year. Another couple, we have the character building sessions, which saw 20 unique individuals, and 17 were new to our programs, had never participated before. So we see that as a really big win. And our Junior Chef Mad Science program, which develops some skill building and personal development in youth, we saw 73 unique individuals. Using a collaborative approach, our mission and vision supports engagement with other community service providers, promotes personal life skills to youth through program delivery, develops positive relationships with youth, provides a safe environment which youth to spend time, and supports inclusivity to all. So as we look into the future, we'll be continued to be Programs will be continued to be supported by the Hub's mission and vision as it expands and meets a variety of needs within the community. One goal we're looking at is to ensure the voice of all youth are heard by developing a youth advisory committee in 2020 and encouraging citizenship between youth and elected officials. Another example would be to ensure all youth are able to access our services. We want to remove barriers for participation, such as continuing to provide subsidies, using the community access card within our programs, and hosting programs at a variety of locations, which allows us to partner with other organizations and also allows us to expand that program delivery. We'd like to develop an Indigenous youth service plan and become a trauma-informed service. Thank you for your time tonight. We welcome questions to our presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hughes. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, ladies. I have a couple silly questions. First one, are you getting rid of the sign? Because it's looking pretty ratty right now.
We held a contest for our new logo, and we had a grade 8 student at Crowther Memorial win the contest. So we're in the process of hiring a graphic designer so that we can have that logo recreated and, yes, eventually have new signage.
Local, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. My other question is, once the rec master plan comes out, will you be taking that into consideration as well? Because I heard you say that you were looking at the needs assessment from a few years ago, and I wonder, is the rec plan going to be part of your plan as well?
Yes, that's a great question. The rec master plan is going to direct some of the information, and even just reading some preliminary information that we have back, we know that it will not only support what we're doing, but how we can support what the rec master plan recommends.
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the report. I have 3 questions. The first one has nothing to do with this topic. I'm just still trying to figure out how you run 65 kilometers.
It was only 54.
Oh, I'm sorry. That explains it then. That I can understand. So one of the questions I have is, I'm not familiar with the term trauma-informed service. Can you just tell me what that is?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to speak to that, or I can speak to that? So we want to look at the whole person who comes into our programs or within our service delivery. We want to ensure that their story is being heard and that we're able to take an account of every experience that they've had. And so between all of the different service deliveries in Strathmore, includes FCSS, the hub, and other parts to it. We want to make sure there's a wraparound service where we can definitely meet the needs of each individual client that comes through the doors.
Great.
You want to add any more?
Thank you. And thank you very much for the numbers on the groups that are, the youth that are attending. And I don't want to start getting into the numbers thing too much, but have you seen an increase in attendance over last year, the year before, perhaps? Is that something that you're keeping track of, or at least noticing?
Yeah, we're definitely keeping track of that. Our teen programming is a really good example of that. We're seeing a high number of unique individuals coming through the door. Our after-school program is nearly full on certain days, so we're really encouraged to see that. And every one of our other programs, such as the Junior Chef or the Mad Science, are always full.
That's pretty impressive stuff. Any chance of getting this PowerPoint emailed to council? I'd love to
don't see why not.
look at that again.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you
sure.
very much. I really appreciate everything
Thank
you
you.
guys are doing.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. Councillor Corbeil?
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the report. I really have confidence that you guys are analyzing like the gaps and overlaps, and I think that we're headed in the right direction. My question is actually in regards to the numbers again. It says teen night, 60 unique individuals, but I don't know, and I know that's from, say, January to August. How many times have we had one? Like, I'm not sure, like, the consistency, the number doesn't mean anything to me.
Fair enough. So between January and August, we would have ran approximately 12 to 15 teen nights for different age groups. So we started with grade 4 and grade 6, and we had grade 7 to 9, and then grade 10 to 12. So it would have been about 12 to 15
Okay.
individual nights.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you.
Oh.
Because
Oh.
I should have. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming to us again and keeping us updated. I really have enjoyed being kept in the loop as you go through this transitioning process. It has included so many different things. And in order to rebrand, the visioning and being able to look at, where you're going in the short and the long term, what I've seen is you've really capitalized on the programs that have been doing well for you, and now you're looking at expanding services, and you're looking at expanding services with the access card, and I'm seeing you look into Youth Advisory Council. Every time you come to us, the one piece that I have not heard and that really concerns me is the budget part. And so I don't know where you're at from last year to this year. So what I would like to do is I would like to, Your Worship, propose a motion. And may I do that, please? Sure. I would like to move that council request a detailed, now, this is open for debate because we've gone over quite, it's not been easy the last 2 years. So my motion is that council request a detailed 2-year financial account of the youth club or /hub to be presented at an upcoming council meeting, but I am willing to do that in a year if that works out better for you. So if I could just please present that, Your Worship.
Sure. Ms. Sawatsky, do you have that? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. I'll open it up to debate. Oh, sorry, Councillor Peterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am in favor of this motion, and I think that I do want to get into the numbers. It doesn't make any sense to me without the numbers, and because you inherited a difficult portfolio, and so this council is hypersensitive to the needs around this, and I think that you're saying today, or maybe and if I misrepresent you, you'll tell me, but I think you're scaling up evidence-based programs using a public funding stream. And whenever that happens, I think that from a council perspective, we need to know how those interventions are budgeted relative to council's considerations, competing needs, and our strategic plan. So when these reports come to us without numbers, I find them interesting, but very, very difficult to accept. And so for me, I want to see in that process that Councillor Bauer suggested through the motion, those scaling up costs that we're also going to face, and that's why I'm in favor of seeing a 2-year. For me, the most important thing in looking at this youth group from a council perspective, there's no question in my mind that the services you provide are legitimate, but our community asks us to speak to competing interests, and so I need to know funding, I need to know compliance to budget, I need to know compliance for ethical standards, which I see included here, and those kinds of things, I think, and what the cost is associated with them today, and I would even, for budget considerations, like to know going into the future, because I think past history would show that this is a portfolio that easily gets out of hand. And I just step back to say that when I came on council in 2013, there was a $47,000 budget line that became, when Mark was presenting to us, greater than $1 million. So for this council, it's imperative that we know those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Peterson. Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. Is there any way we could amend the motion to include a projected budget going forward, or do we need that? No, I meant for the budgeting purposes.
So you
For the
just
fall.
you just want like a projected budget?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Peterson?
Just to speak to that, Your Worship, I'm sure that will come in when we do our budgeting with, when Mel Teedy brings that forward. I think that will come automatically in that. But for me, it's really critical that when that comes, that we see a detailed, specific breakdown.
Yeah, yeah, well said. And I guess one question for administration is, can we put maybe a more specific date, like a month from now or something like that? Oh, James, your microphone's on.
Sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council can put a date on it if they wish, yes.
Okay. Would you like to do that then? Yeah, what would you guys find reasonable?
Your Worship, if I may, we would be very happy to come back to council and present a budget and comparables. And also, if I may, Your Worship, respond to Councillor Peterson's concern is the business plan overview we're showing doesn't include the detailed information, because when we come back to present the plan in full, it will have the breakdowns that Councillor Peterson is asking about with regards to finances, specifically to the business plan. So we're happy to do both and present to council.
Okay, like a month from now, or because you're projecting the business plan will be presented a month from now, so.
My concern is by the time it has to get into e-scribe and stuff, that's my only, if we put a date on it.
So we'll say a month from now?
That would be
So
fine
the,
with us.
Is that October 16th?
I can tell you. I think so. 16.
Sorry, what's that, Mr. Thackeray?
If I may,
Yeah.
just because of the timing, and we're still trying to put some edges around numbers, if we could say the first meeting in November, that would give us enough time, and we may be able to do it sooner, but I just, we need a month. I think the staff need a month, because we're, yeah.
The intent of the motion.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Bauer.
Oh, sorry.
The intent of my motion, if I could just, please, Your Worship, just speak to that, is really to get a handle on where we're at before going into the budget planning and that type of thing. So if that can be done, and if you don't think we'll be meeting as a council to discuss the direction of the hub going forward before November, then that would be acceptable. But if we're going to be meeting in October and just be discussing how much will be allocated in 2020 for the budget for the hub, then I would prefer that we move it up.
If I may, October would be premature. So if you're comfortable, we could certainly do it for November.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess then, do we need to amend the motion to reflect that?
To set a date?
Okay, would you like to amend your motion then, Councillor Bauer?
I will amend my motion to read that council request a detailed 2-year financial account of the Youth Club Hub to be presented at the November 6th meeting, 2019. And if I could please just close the comments for this motion.
Sure.
My intent is in no way to, I do not want you to get the feeling that I do not value what you are doing at the hub. I very, very much value. What I am trying to do is just provide some transparency to our public of where our funds are going. We're looking inwards to what we're doing, and I want to do the same thing. When I came on council, there was a little bit of there was questions as to where funds were going. And I think that you've had a good opportunity to make some really good changes. And I thought that now would be a good time to ask if the programs are going well, if they're, I just would like to know whether or not they're meeting their targets, if we're having to subsidize programs at this point, or if they're self-sustaining, what types of changes you've made in order to, have you cut programs that were not making money? I just would like to see where the staffing is. And then we also took out the food program, and I'd like to make sure that we've been able to balance the program by taking out those things as well. So thank you, Your Worship.
Yes, and thank you very much for your due diligence as well. So I have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that motion is passed. And Ms. Sawatsky, do we also need to accept this report for information? Okay.
Yeah, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Aya and Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to item 7.3, which is the proclamation for Alberta Development Officers Week. And would you like to speak to this?
Yes, please.
All right, please.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. It's my distinct pleasure to request Council on behalf of the Alberta Development Association, the ADOA, that Council recognize September 23rd to September 28th, the Alberta Development Officers Week. In particular, to also recognize our own development officer, Ms. Kathy Jones. Kathy's been with the town for over 10 years and has lived in the town for over 20 years. Over the past, I would say, 3 to 4 years, she's really increased a lot of her education and skills and taken time out of her own day to, learn more about the real estate and also development profession. In terms of our team, Kathy's really the actual glue that keeps everyone together. She's a link between the girls at the front counter and our planners, and also Harry. She's built really great relationships with many of the applicants. The complexity of the applications that she's taken over the last year has also increased, working with cannabis stores and group homes and also development permits. So we're just really thankful for her and thankful for all the service that she has done to the town and really helping our staff do their day-to-day work. So on behalf of the town and the ADOA, we'd like to thank Kathy for her service and ask Council to please proclaim September 23rd to the 28th, the Development Officers Week. And Kathy, if you'd like to say any words here, more than welcome to.
Thank you, Mr. Rebello.
I just want to say it's a pleasure to come to work every day at the town. It's been a long time. I've learned a lot. Started as an assistant and then as an associate and now a development officer. And I really love my job. I love working here. It's a pleasure. And I work with a wonderful team.
Well done.
It's very good to hear.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Worship. On behalf of Council, Kathy, I just want to really commend you and thank you for your service. And Your Worship, I would like to move that Council proclaim the week of September 23rd to 28th, 2019 to be designated as Alberta Development Officers Week in the town of Strathmore. Would also like the motion to offer congratulations to Kathy Jones for her 10 years of dedication to the town of Strathmore. Thank you.
Would anybody else like this? Councillor Bauer?
I would just like to say, Kathy, that it's such a great opportunity for us to really recognize one of our own. And thank you for all your hard work. And we hope that this empowers you to continue to be the best that you are.
Councillor Peterson? Oh, Councillor Sobel.
Just very
sorry.
briefly, I just want to let you know, Kathy, and first of all, congratulations and thank you, that if I had made the motion, I would have given you that week off.
We don't normally do that.
On for mayor. I missed it, what did he say?
Give her a week off.
So I have a question from Councillor Peterson about whether we have to read the proclamation itself into the record.
Or whether it will just show up on our website, on our front page.
Your worship, our practice has been that it shows up on our website and our Facebook page. But if council chooses, they can read the proclamation into the minutes.
Do I have a town crier volunteer?
Use your town crier voice.
You are deputy mayor.
It's tempting. I just wanted to thank you very much, Kathy, you and the other people that you work with. But yeah, thank you very much for being a good representative of the town and for working hard to facilitate development in the town. So thank you. Oh, and we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to item 7.4, broadband internet deployment. Mr. Roycroft.
And I too will say thank you very much to Kathy. I am forever lucky as a director of the great staff I work with, and Kathy is chief among them. So thanks to council for recognizing her. It's a very thorough report we've put in front of council, so I won't speak to it all. I'll just give a very brief overview. So one of the key strategic drivers that has come out of both federal initiatives, provincial initiatives, and even as talking to businesses, this perception that it's imperative that Strathmore really bring access to very high-speed internet to the community. Whether we call it 500 up, 500 down, that sort of high-level, ultra-high speed, ultra-high bandwidth connection is imperative for attracting high-tech businesses and kind of the new, we'll call it the new generation. I feel so corny saying that. Since 2017, town staff have been participating in a regional dark fiber initiative. Again, not going too much into detail there. It is an initiative. Originally, there were about 30 members. It's now been reduced to about 9. Those numbers do shift. Looking to collaborate on taking advantage of a latent dark fiber line that runs from Calgary to Medicine Hat to Lethbridge, and Lethbridge to Calgary for a high-speed redundant connection. This file continues to evolve. We wanted to keep council in the loop and gauge if there is interest in staff continuing to participate. We will also say that this isn't the only broadband initiative staff are looking at. I've asked David to look into 2 other potential venues for bringing broadband to town so that we're not tied to any one approach. So looking to put resources into 3 different approaches. We have a work plan planned out here based on really assessing what the community's needs are, looking to talk to potential users to see what level of broadband capacity there is, looking at different providers, looking at different alternatives, and ultimately bringing to this council which of the options are, we'll say, most suitable for Strathmore. I can go into great detail on it, but I think we'll just pass on that. So key is we're looking at 3 key alternatives here. The regional fiber initiative, 2 local ones. However, and I will give, again, Mr. Lavasser full credit for this. Looking also to, if it's not a big regional network, instead looking to partner with just Wheatland and Siksika to make a smaller, more compact partnership. So we really want to make sure we're looking at all options with this, sort of that big regional one, which has some advantages from a cost perspective, but may see the town of Strathmore subsidizing smaller municipalities. We'll call it the close regional collective, which would be really looking to leverage our partnerships with Wheatland, who are very interested and very active in this partnership, and also Siksika, who have beginning to make noises about their wanting to be part of this. To me, that would be a phenomenal troika, we'll call it. And then even looking at Strathmore alone type proposals. Right now, David has put together some preliminary budget numbers, we'd be looking to reallocate from current capital programs where we've come in under this year, about $25,000 to fund outreach and research. The other numbers there are put in as placeholders for if we go with the dark fiber initiative to give council an idea what the costs look like. So that would be about $600,000 in capital and $35,000 a year. However, that is absolutely not the ask right now, and I'm going to caution those numbers are so preliminary. We're still very, very early in that. Obviously, we'd be looking to drive down those costs substantially and bring a project to council that is that makes financial sense. So, yeah, right now this report is primarily to pass the current status of negotiations and discussion to council, to seek blessings on moving forward with discussions, and an acceptance of the preliminary budget with the recognition that this isn't a request for new funding, but just reallocating from, as we get to this stage in the capital year, I know where my projects are well under and we can reallocate without a tax impact. David, do you have anything else you'd like to say?
Your Worship, if I may. Just what we're looking to do here is that we're proposing to look at a very key aspect of service for the town. And that's going to require due diligence, which is what Ryan's speaking to. My commitment to the town and to kind of this administration is we're going to get the best possible deal at developing that service for the town. Those are the three alternatives that Ryan laid out. You have my commitment to be able to negotiate those appropriately. And it'll be a transparent process. So whatever recommendation we come through by the town, we will have all the financial knowledge. We will have, we'll call it the appropriate due diligence behind that decision. And we will have an ask that, if I have my way, is potentially even funded through some partnerships and through some available funding that's out there. So all things to come. At this point in time, we're just looking to reallocate to really just do that due diligence. That's all I had.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. Are you ready for questions, or do you have more?
Yeah, no, that kind of concludes what staff's remarks.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ryan, I always love when you come to the mic because you always answer all my questions in the time that you have. So you
I take
already
too
told
long?
us where it's coming from, and my other question was going to be, if Rocky View does not participate, where would you go? And you answered that with Siksika, which I think is brilliant. So I really love that too. I did my own research and found out that the demand for connectivity increases at 21% per year. And that's 100% in 5 years. If we're going to attract people to this town, this is very, very vital. And I think that in terms of having young people, they are connected, they're wearing wearables now. Who knows what we might have in terms of, the capacity to access internet on our bodies in the future. So I very much support this, and I know that there's other questions, so I'm not going to make the motion, but I'd just let you know that I'd like to let you know that you have my support. Thank you.
Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. I'll go to Mr. Thackeray first.
If I turn mine off, then I get killed.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
All right, you're good. You're good to turn yours on now.
Sorry. If I may, through the chair, if the motion comes forward to move ahead, could I please ask that the money is included in the motion, please? Thank you.
And Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, first of all, I have no idea what a wearable is. But anyway.
It's also smart clothes, it's also smart.
Okay. Okay, did I just indulge that I'm old?
People get licenses, they have to come in and get a chip in their dog, so we know who's pooping on whose lawn.
Oh, no. Okay, that was more information than I required. I just wanted to know what a wearable was. But I'm curious as to, and maybe I'm like not understanding it correctly, but if we don't go with the regional partnership, or if we do go with the regional partnership, or we do go with the town by themselves, those two options, what does that do to Wheatland County and Siksika? Will they be able to kind of purchase from us? Would that be the way that that would happen? Because I would like to see those partners who are in need of it to get it as well, no matter what we decide. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Your Worship. And that's something that we concluded as well as we looked at this is the original discussion among staff was, well, you know, if the larger, you know, 23 or 30 or 9 partner thing doesn't work, let's go alone. And then sort of the thought was, well, that's not the right approach either. We have some really good, really interested partners. As I say, Wheatland is very engaged in these discussions. And we have Sixica right down the road that in one form or another we'd like to outreach to see, gauge their interest. If they aren't interested, certainly at this time we would try to bring the council a scalable solution that can bring on partners.
Okay.
Whether it be a sort of a tower-based solution where additional towers could come in, or whether it be a fiber-based solution that fibers could be extended. I guess one of the very clear mandates of this council has been, and even in your strategic plan, looking at partnerships, looking at engaging our neighbors, looking at reaching out. And as we discussed this was a very obvious one where partners can be brought in, where we can work with neighboring municipalities or the First Nation to make again, what David will call a better deal for Strathmore.
Yeah.
And for, as well, our partners. So I can't see any scenario where we would want to actively cut them off unless they had absolutely no desire to work with us.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ryan.
Councillor Peterson, or Mr. Thackeray first.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Councillor Peterson.
Would we go to a 5G network, like a low latency network?
Your Worship, this is sort of, we'll even call it an additional step from that. So the goal here, and I think we've talked lightly about this in '97, was a full fiber network to get sort of a physical backbone. As we've talked to other tower providers, there are sort of 300 up, 300 down solutions that aren't 5G, but that are essentially wireless connections to fiber. David may know more about this than me.
It's like the beamforming kind
Yeah.
of thing, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
If there's one thing I've learned about this file, it's that if I want to feel old, I start talking to people about this.
So if you are, you know, utilize 5G, beyond 5G, and whatever kind of frequency connection to networks, there are communities now in the world that instead of doing that are simply launching their own satellites. Not those kind of satellites. And so it is becoming rather commonplace. And, you know, if we're not going to involve ourselves with that, we might be something to look at before they outlaw it. Thank you.
Your Worship, very astute, right? At the end of the day, absolutely. That's one technology that could be used to provide the service level that I mentioned previously. Without giving too much away at this point in time, really the alternative assessment that we'll be doing as part of this, right, will leverage a very knowledgeable advisor which will look at all of those technologies. Mm-hmm. Really, from my perspective, it's delivering the most cost-effective approach to reaching the service level that is dictated by the needs assessment that will be coming. Right, and so security is one aspect, redundancy is another aspect, latency and the impact of that latency is another aspect. So really it's going to be a balance of all of those objectives, and very similar to what we've done in the past is really just vetting that through the community. I think will be important first to find out exactly what our needs are, and then smashing that against the alternatives that are out there, right, to be able to meet those needs in the most cost-effective way as possible. That's all I have.
You may as well just hang up out here.
Okay.
Mr. Thackeray.
It doesn't help when I talk technology.
The other part is important on this, and this is why we'd like to get some due diligence done, is looking at this through emergency management lens. When I went through the flood, the lack of connectivity was critical, and even if our main buildings had fiber, it would have been a game changer. But how we connect is a whole nother issue, and that's why it's really vital that we get our head, because some of the numbers that have been proposed are really significant and not small numbers, and even, we need to get our head around it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Councillor Bauer?
I just have one more point, and then I'm ready to make a motion, Your Worship. Ryan, I did notice that AUMA had brought this up back in 2015. Have all the grants been used up, or are they still trying to promote this initiative?
Your Worship, if I may. CRTC has its own, we'll call it rural broadband funding initiative that's out there. The specifics and the details around that aren't really mapped out all that well. So it's a matter of, understanding what's out there, what we have access to, and whether or not we can leverage kind of our relationships and our partnership with Sisika and with Wheatland to be able to put ourselves in a better position. So there is money out there for this type of initiative. You'll find there's lots of interest in this, including the typical telco options, right? The Teluses and the Shaws of the world. But again, it's about finding the solution that best aligns with the needs assessment that we'll be doing.
Thank you. I move that council receive the following report as information and approve the preliminary project due diligence budget of $25,000 for municipal outreach and technical advisory for 2019.
Thanks, Betty.
Up to a maximum.
I don't think so, because it said that was
Yeah,
already
25.
approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Oh,
No, it's not.
To be reallocated from
Yeah.
capital under.
Yes.
I'm not asking for new money. I'm under on a few things.
To be reallocated.
Yay!
Yeah.
To be reallocated from other financial projects? Other capital projects?
Wait.
From savings of capital projects? Yeah. Well, it sounds great when people look at it. Ryan's already
Changing it.
Nope, we're good.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Councillor,
I don't think we do, Your Worship.
oh, no?
Not a full money, because where the money is coming from, we still don't have in the motion, if I'm correct.
She has to
But it's
say
gotta
it.
be.
Okay, so Councillor Bauer, if you'd like to add to your motion.
That council receive the following report as information and approve the preliminary project due diligence budget of $25,000 for municipal outreach and technical advisory for 2019 to be reallocated from other capital projects.
Good? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. If you want to shut off your mic. Of course. Councillor Peterson?
So one of the great partners, and I am of course in favor of the motion, but one of the great partners in all of this is Marigold Library, who has an enormous investment in broadband, and also in addition to that, of course, WID will have, and they're I would imagine, and I am speculating because nobody from WID has ever said this to me, but I'm speculating that, with fracking and with all the other kinds of things, one of the things that the big broadband networks can do is predict seismic movement and all kinds of things. So it could have all kinds of application in community. But the other thing was that I wanted to just share with you is that I read a really, really great article from 2018 that was called Lit Up and Left Dark, Failures of Imagination in Urban Broadband. And it is a really, really great article that talks about failures of the last few years in urban development, people who basically move too fast without the due diligence that this administration is bringing to us. So for that, I'm very grateful.
So your worship, if I may, there's an existing network of fiber that both exists in Strathmore and is unutilized at this point in time. The CRTC also came out and mandated that any existing fiber, regardless of the owners, are ultimately shared, right, for the purpose of sustaining competition. What you've referenced, first of all, I'll add that to my reading list, thank you. Especially with all the stuff you've read lately, lit up and after. The fact of the matter is that there's actually, when you start kind of peeling the onion back on this, there's been an extensive amount of forethought, failure or otherwise, that have actually will be facilitated and reviewed when we're looking at this. Because there's a lot of things that we can leverage here to keep our costs down, which, I'm looking forward to articulating for everyone. It's gonna be exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you. All right, and we will move on to item 8.1, reports from councillors on committees on which they sit.
Or I can.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have two. First, being the Seniors Advisory Committee. We took the month of August off as well as council, and so we had our first meeting on last Monday, the 9th, and we are finalizing our strategic plan. Everything is looking good, and coffees have resumed, so everything is up and running. And Wheatland Housing Management. The management body has completed a 3-year strategic plan. They have a new vision, which is ensuring everyone has a place to call home. I like it. And a new mission at Wheatland Housing Management Body. It is our goal to service the community by honoring the uniqueness of everyone we serve. Welcome home. And also, we have approved a, yes? 3% increase to the lodge accommodation fee. The lodge hasn't had an increase in 3 years. So this year, we've increased it by 3%. Just to give you an idea of what's out there, seniors self-contained has a waiting list of 24 applicants. And community housing, social housing, has 81 applicants on the waiting list. Not the greatest numbers, shows some need. Anyways, and just to make sure that the public is aware, Wheatland Lodge is having their fall tea on October 5th at 2 p.m. Everyone is welcome. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Councillor Cox. And to add to that, every third Wednesday of the month at 10 a.m. at the library, there is seniors coffee. Yeah, and there's always like very informative discussions. They bring in, yeah, I go to them actually with my kids. So, but they bring in speakers to kind of talk about various topics, and there's also free coffee and donuts. So, and it's open to anybody. So, please come down. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Yeah, that's no problem at all. Okay, and do we need to accept those for information? Is there anybody else that has one? No? Okay. Could I get a motion to accept that for information?
I move the council accept the reports for information.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Thank you. All right, and we will move on to item 10.1, which is Land Use Bylaw Amendment, Wildflower Phase 4. Ms. Cameron.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship and members of council. Staff received an application to rezone 24 residential lots in Wildflower Phase 4 from R1N to a site-specific direct control district. The purpose of the rezoning or the direct control district is to allow future homeowners in Wildflower Phase 4 to have the option to apply for a secondary suite should they choose to own and operate one. It's important for me to note that this application does not guarantee that a secondary suite will develop on each of these lots. It simply just allows these owners to apply for one if they choose. If an owner does in fact want to apply for a secondary suite, they will need to apply for a development permit, which there's a pretty hefty review process. There's also a $250 application fee. And that permit also is reviewed by our safety codes officer for compliance with Alberta Building Code. In the interest of being open and transparent, the developer chose to submit what is known as a comprehensive land use amendment application. Pretty much what that is it's a land use amendment application that comes in, it's a larger scale, and it's applied for before the lots have actually been purchased by property owners. There's no development on these lots. The image on screen is a pretty recent snapshot of the neighborhood, and as you can see, there is no development in the neighborhood right now. And in fact, all of these lots are currently owned by the developer Aquila Homes and Trilogy, so it's all still within the development industry. These types of applications are encouraged by planners and planning practice, just because, again, they're more open, transparent. Alternatively, what the developer could have done was waited until half of this neighborhood was purchased and built, and then applied for spot zoning on individual lots, in which case that would not be as favored by planning and development, just because the owners may not have known about the option for secondary suites when they made their purchase. Secondary suites can come in a variety of forms, and the image on screen was taken from the City of Calgary. We'll give them credit for that. These are 4 of the most common forms of secondary suite that you likely will see. The 2 images on the left that are highlighted in red are the styles of secondary suite that this bylaw will only apply to. So here we're only allowing the secondary suite to exist within the existing building footprint. We're not allowing secondary suites to develop in the form of a garden suite or an attached or detached garage suite, which you see on the right side of the image. This is primarily because we don't want density to increase. We're just looking to keep it within the existing footprint. Oddly enough, or funny enough, if you were to drive down the road in an area with a secondary suite and then one without a secondary suite, and you looked at both the homes, you wouldn't actually know which one has the suite, because we're not adding additional gross floor area. It's all contained within the dwelling. So public consultation and engagement is a big part of an application like this, and staff always encourages the developer to reach out to applicants before the town reaches out per the Municipal Government Act circulation requirements. And in this case, the developer did in fact go that route. So the developer reached out to the Wildflower Ranch Homeowners Association before the town made contact. This information was then disseminated through the neighborhood, and it was posted on the Facebook page, I believe, for comment. Following this initial contact, the town then sent out a letter of engagement just notifying the residents of the application that was received, and if they had any, I guess, if you wanted to influence the bylaw, to write into us. We received 8 letters of potential concern from that initial contact and 3 letters of support from the development industry. Those 8 letters of concern were relayed to the developer, who then proceeded to create a frequently asked questions document. And that FAQ was developed to, I guess, alleviate any of the concerns that were voiced by those residents. Following the FAQ, staff held an event with the Homeowners Association president, as well as 2 representatives, to kind of go over those concerns and discuss the enforcement mechanisms the town has in place to alleviate those concerns. Following that event, staff strongly believes that the event was positive, and the relationship was significantly mended from where it was previous. I'm going to use this slide to discuss what staff is actually bringing forward to council for adoption. So bylaw 1914 is essentially the R1N district in the land use bylaw, with the addition of secondary suites listed as a permitted use, a definition of what a secondary suite actually is, and then parking regulations to help regulate and control secondary suites. So if you were to put this bylaw up to the R1N district, you would notice that the site requirements in terms of setbacks and building height, driveway widths, all that stuff, facades, all that, it's identical. And the reason why we chose to use the R1N district as a base is because the properties right now are already zoned R1. So we didn't want to create a significant change to the neighborhood. Now, the next 4 or 5 slides, staff is going to use to illustrate why staff supports this application. So when these applications come in, we review them in terms of the statutory plans that are in place, and then we also look at the research and all that kind of stuff. So the first and arguably the most important document that we reviewed this application against is the Wildflower Ranch Area Structure Plan. This is the area structure plan that governs development on the subject property. As you can see on screen, the ASP designates the subject property as low-density residential development. That's shown in yellow. Now, while the area structure plan does not define what low-density development is, it does define what medium-density and high-density development is. The definition of medium density, which is shown on screen, is or refers to a townhouse-style residential development, and higher densities, we're looking at 3 to 4 story buildings. So in this case, because we aren't, I guess, increasing the gross floor area from a traditional single detached house, staff is of the opinion that the secondary suites application is consistent with the area structure plan's designation. Moving along to the second quote, the area structure plan quotes, "A diversity of housing options will encourage a broad cross-section of the population to live in the community due to the range of housing prices and lifestyles by the variety of residential units." And lastly, "A mix of housing will also enable individuals, couples, families to remain in the community throughout the various stages of their life." And Justin will be touching on this briefly. Following the area structure plan, the municipal development plan, which is the town's long-range general planning document, was reviewed in the context of this application, and staff has to review every application against this document. Specifically, what we did was we looked at the residential policies in the MDP, and when you look at policy 3.2.16, secondary suites are considered an appropriate method of providing additional and affordable housing in the residential districts in addition, or if the additional parking requirements can be met and safety codes can also be met. So in this case here with this application, staff considered the concerns brought forward by the residents, which primarily had to do with parking in addition to a few other things. And in that land use district, we've made it a mandatory requirement that all secondary suite applications have to accommodate their parking on site. So that's non-negotiable. And if we are finding that secondary suites are breaching those conditions, then we do have enforcement mechanisms in place to, I guess, rein those in. The second part of that quote discusses safety and building code. As previously mentioned, each secondary suite application will be required to submit a building and utility permit, which will be reviewed by our safety codes officer, Harry Solom. The next study that we looked at was the FCSS Needs Assessment 2016. And this study was rather interesting because it documented a few things. The first of which was that affordable housing and poverty are among the top 5 biggest issues facing Strathmore and the top 5 priority areas for staff's resources and attention. And staff believe that one of the best ways that we can address these concerns that are voiced in this assessment is through the addition and implementation of secondary suites in town. The FCSS Needs Assessment, I believe, conducted a survey that produced 107 survey results, and when you review those survey results, affordable housing, poverty, and secondary suites are all fairly common recommendations brought forward, and I believe that is provided as attachment 3 to the staff report for reviewing. In addition to the FCSS Needs Assessment, staff looked at the 2016 federal census data, and this data, I guess, also reaffirmed the need to address affordable housing and poverty in Strathmore. Approximately 1,100 Strathmore residents in 2016 were classified as low-income individuals, and Stats Canada has their own method of defining that. But when you crunch the numbers, there 8 to 10% of the population are living in low-income conditions. So another way that we can, I guess, alleviate this concern or address this concern is through the addition of secondary suites through the planning process, and staff believes that the application in front of you today certainly helps to achieve that. Following the census, staff has been engaging the community for the upcoming municipal development plan redo or rewrite in a variety of ways. Now, the image on the two images on the left are showing the Emerging Opportunities event that staff conducted on June 20th, 2019. This event was well attended by the developers, builders, realtors, business community of Strathmore, all of which have business interests in town. Among many of the subjects that were discussed at this event, secondary suites and affordability and poverty seem to keep coming up, and it came up to the point where it actually influenced one of our guiding principles that we'll be using to influence the plan moving forward, which is shown on screen in yellow, to provide more housing choice within complete communities. And again, staff believes that this application is a step in the right direction to achieving what the industry is telling us and responding to those concerns. Secondly, staff has held, or I guess opened up a Survey Monkey, which we have received 134 responses to date, just collecting resident feedback for how they think we should be positioning ourselves moving forward to achieve economic, social, and environmental success. If you look at the responses in that survey, affordable housing, poverty, secondary suites, innovative housing forms is continuing to come up. And so staff believes, again, that this application is consistent with what we're hearing from residents through that survey. And lastly, the image on the right is showing the pop-up events that staff have been holding around town. We've been advertising these on Facebook and social media fairly frequently. This is the event that we held at the Revs event. Chuck and Renee are there on the screen. At these pop-up events, we are again hearing the need for to address the affordability issues in town, not just with housing, with everything, but housing is certainly falling within that category. So once again, we do believe that the application that the developers brought forward is consistent with what we're hearing from residents for the concerns. And then lastly, staff has been monitoring the building statistics that that we've been receiving for over the past 5 or 6 years, and the image on screen shows those statistics fairly easily. 2014 and 2015, we had we were booming in terms of a Strathmore context. We were up 70 permits in 2015, but then those permits have slowly tapered off to this year where we're at 8. And this is a concern for the development, the building, and the realtor industry because homes aren't moving, and they're looking for ways which we can, I guess, keep that industry moving in the economic downturn. And secondary suites are continuing to come up as a way which we can encourage new homeowners to move to Strathmore, encourage renters to have more disposable income to, I guess, feed the economy. And at this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Justin. I think you've heard enough of me about the benefits of legalizing secondary suites.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Cameron. So, Council, I know this is quite new for maybe some of you about secondary suites and really understanding what they are. So what I did the last probably month or so, I've reached out to quite a few of my colleagues back at the city. I have contacts in kind of BC and also Kamloops, Vancouver. Reached out to about 5 different realtors as well, just to really get a clear and good understanding about what are the benefits of secondary suites. You know, there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of fear mongering, what I would say, and I think it's really based upon lack of education and kind of knowledge. So, benefits of the homeowner, it really helps to increase the property values of the home. The average price of a secondary suite, if you actually want to legalize it, build it, go through the permitting, is between $25,000 to $50,000. It's not a easy, cheap choice. So when someone wants to do it, they do it right. And especially if they have to go through a legal regulatory process. So it increases the value. It's a strong reflection of someone wants to invest in their home. It's an income booster for the people owning. It helps to lower their mortgage payment in terms of offsetting that cost. And more from a social side of things, what I really started to hear was that it allows seniors to age in place. Their kids have moved out. They've got quote unquote disposable income, but it's now on a fixed income. It allows them to stay in their home, upgrade their basement, maybe have their kids or grandparents come and move back in, but it does allow aging in place. And it allows people to downsize and stay in their home and increase their income. For families who with teenagers or young adults who want to fly the nest and be independent, it allows them to stay in their home. They'll have a separate entrance, they have their own kind of kitchen, so it allows the families to stay together. It's a huge benefit to stable communities and stable families, and gives people options when they're looking for mortgages to really help them. From the tenant's point of view, it increases the amount of housing choice they have. So when people are looking to rent, there could be older places, newer suites up to code really are far more attractive. It's increases housing affordability, and suites in general are ground-oriented units. People have a backyard. It's not like you're stuck in a condo with bad noise, and people have a space they can call home. It's far more, and it gives them opportunities, as I said, to live with their family. Something that's really come up in Calgary and Alberta is actually multi-generational housing. So I talked to Thomas, part of our economic development is that we're having ads now run in Punjabi and kind of different languages. The northeast of Calgary, where they allow secondary suites in every home, are absolutely booming in the realtor industry because there are multi-generational families moving in together. 2 or 3 of them are now in a home, or 2 families, and they have 2 different suites. They've got that independence, they've got that choice. So for us, I think it helps to widen the net and the scope of who we can attract to the town. And really, and ultimately, it's legal and it's safe. We've had tenants and also residents call the town in fear of their safety, asking the town to come out and inspect these homes. Every suite will go through a DP process, a building code process, and they'll be legal and safe. For the overall community, it helps to maintain population growth. It maximizes the infrastructure in that community. So every dollar that goes into putting into roads, pipes, parks, sidewalks, maintenance, we're doing it now for more people. And there's no change to the neighborhood character. So this form of housing, as we've gone through, you could drive down the street, you would not know it's there. We're not changing the character, and that was quite important to us in these areas. And again, we've just really talked about, helps to retain young adults and older adults as well, improves the safety rental stock, and increases property values. From a regulation and enforcement standpoint, we had a really good meeting, as Cameron said, with the HOA. One of the realities that they did agree with was that you're going to have secondary suites in some nature everywhere. There are more quote-unquote illegal suites in Strathmore, in Calgary, in every municipality than legal suites. If there's a demand for a house to be rented, or if people are renting it, you're going to rent that house. The MJ does not regulate against the user, it regulates against the use. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have an illegal suite, not safe, no code, where we cannot enforce parking regulations, or have a suite go through the right process, the right regulatory mechanisms, and where we can write a parking enforcement as part of the DP conditions, that the parking for the suite has to be on site. So if there are any complaints, it's part of the DP conditions. So your average single family home, you may have 4 kids living in there, 6 cars. There's no requirement of our current DP to have all that parking on site. You do have spillover in larger families. Because what we're saying is we have reacted to some of the concerns, and we're saying all the parking needs to be on site. And it allows the owner to be able to market a legal suite when they sell it or when they are advertising rental. Renters are far more attracted to legal suites that have gone through the process because they know they're safe. So, as you said, I did want to address the resident concerns in an open and transparent way, and I said we have met with the committee and walked through with them. Some of their concerns are that this application is not in line with the ASP. I think Cameron has walked through that, and that we interpret that the low density, because there's no change of form of the housing, no change of density, no change of height, no change of setbacks. The square footage of the house stays the same. So the left example, the red, that space in the house will be there regardless. The examples on the right does add increased square footage, does add increased density. And in terms of the increased density and the traffic, again, no one can predict who can live next to them. You could have a home bought by a single person, you could have a home bought by a family with 4 kids. And no one can control the amount of people there. What you can control, and again, it's going back to the square footage of the home. So we're saying the square footage of the home is not changing. Therefore, we don't feel there's any difference of these type of homes versus a medium to large family. And in fact, if you think about it, like us, or kind of many of us do have kids, we don't have space in our basements. Our basements are our kids and our toys. It's people who have space in their basement. It's people who are single that don't have kids. Oops. It's seniors who have that space. It's vacant space that people want to use for income supplement, to have families and their kids live there. I said, I have 3 kids. There's no way I'm going to have a secondary suite and a tenant in there. Parking spillover, again, we've talked about it, that there will be a strong requirement in the DP conditions that the parking for the suite will be on site. If there are complaints, we can enforce it through our bylaw and through our fines. Curb appeal, again, we've talked about there's no change to the structure of the house. It's an internal. The only external change is an external staircase, and it's normally seen in a bungalow form. So if you see the second house at the top, the owner could choose to have an external entrance, but normally the staircase would be on the side of the house. Again, you can't see it. Maintenance was brought up. Again, we have a community standards bylaw that deals with every type of residence. Our bylaw does not distinguish between homeowners and renters. We have a community standards bylaw. If there are any concerns about maintenance, like any other residence, you can have as many people who own a home who don't value maintaining it versus someone who rents. It's a dangerous game to play when you paint someone with a brush, because I've lived in homes next to people who own their home who don't care about their home. So we have a tool in place through our bylaw to respond to any maintenance concerns like we do with any other home in town. And that's a copy of the bylaw. Sorry, we have that section 7, nuisances, weeds, and unsightly premises. Again, it meets, it's for the whole town. So again, I just wanted to share those thoughts. As I said, we have taken the concerns seriously. We have gone out and done our due diligence and our research and talked to many people, and we just wanted to be able to share those with council. So I'm just going to let Cameron conclude here. So.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. So yes, staff does support the proposed application for a variety of reasons. We've looked at the town's applicable statutory plans, the area structure plan, the municipal development plan. We've also looked at the FCSS needs assessment, the census, and we've also taken the concerns of the residents very seriously, and we've implemented those concerns into the bylaw, and we believe that we have the appropriate tools to mitigate those concerns, whether it's municipal enforcement and other avenues there. And so with that, Justin and myself, we're going to end with the recommendation that that council give bylaw 1914 first reading, and that council establish November 6, 2019 as the date for the public hearing. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to really jump in quickly. Copies of the letters are in your agenda. There is a petition as well as there are letters of support from the builders. That will be part of your package for the public hearing if it gets there.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Councillor Peterson?
Your worship, I would move that council give first reading to bylaw number 19-14, a bylaw redesignating 24 properties from R1N to DC. Can I put both these in the same motion? And that council hold a public hearing for bylaw number 19-14 on November 6th, 2019. May I ask a question for clarification, your worship?
Sure.
I was just wondering if when you were doing this, if any distinct planning considerations around this that might be approached differently because of our rural nature. And I see a lot of it, taken from the cities, and I wondered when I was looking through this if that was also one of the considerations that you sort of looked at this as a rural suburban community, if there were any other considerations that lent itself to that. And I don't know, I don't have any preconceived notions around it at all, just wondering.
Through the chair, the key concerns surrounded density, traffic, parking, and maintenance. So, those concerns, I would say, are pretty widespread, really, anywhere you are. And I think we tried to show that in terms of the traffic and the density, as we gave the examples of a typical medium to large family, and you don't choose who you live next to, and we don't regulate. That's very, very hard to say. And we don't regulate against that. And I think in terms of the parking and the maintenance, I think we've demonstrated that the parking can be enforced through a bylaw, and the maintenance through our own community standards bylaw. So, I mean, in terms of the rural, urban, I think the issues are the same. I don't think they're any different. So I'm not sure if that helped answer that.
No, I just didn't know.
Your kind of question.
Thank you. And just a reminder that we can't ask questions specific to the bylaw, but Councillor Cox, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mine was just more a comment. Any question I had, you answered. Thank you very much. You did a great job of covering every single one of those letters and concerns. I really appreciate that you took the time to really get to know what everybody was upset about and addressing those concerns. I want to support you and say that I am one of those families that no one wants to live beside, because I have 4 children and they all drive and all of their boyfriends drive, and therefore I have 10 cars in front of my house when everyone's home. And they are on the street. But they're all gone to university now, so I'm okay for the next little bit. So again, thank you very much for everything that you did.
Thank you. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you, and I appreciate the comment, Your Worship, and this is actually a procedural question. It's kind of unusual, at least I'm not used to getting such a presentation at this stage of a bylaw application. And not that I mind, it was very interesting, but my question is, will your presentation be given at the council portion of the, when the matter comes back for us for public hearing?
The chair, yes, it will.
Thank you.
Yes, I think we had a chat internally, and I think because this was quite a new issue for council, and we wanted to give you all the information to make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you. I just want to say on the onset how I echo Councillor Sobel's comments, that I was very impressed that you did so much research on this before bringing it to us, because you answered a lot of my questions. I don't know, though, from what you've put in the package, what high density currently looks like in Wildflower. So, because I just haven't driven there recently, Are there other condos or duplexes, or is there any, are they all single-family, the entire?
Councillor Bauer.
Is that a procedural question?
I think
Or
we
could
should-
I ask for it to be included in the next presentation?
Yeah, I think we should probably limit it to the actual public hearing for the questions about density in the neighborhood.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine with that.
We can include a summary of the dwelling units and in Wildflower right now.
Okay. I think that, I had something else, but it's gone now.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, gentlemen. And so we have a motion on the floor, first reading for the bylaw. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, we will, could I get a motion to adjourn now? I know, I'm just joking. All right, so, well, we'll go to item 10.2, which is bylaw number 19-17, procedural bylaw, amendment bylaw. And,
Our gallery's
well, that really cleared everyone out, eh? All right, Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. For the record, I was okay with being bumped, but we'll go through it with it anyways. Council at the September 4th regular council meeting directed administration to bring back 3 options for different start times for committee of the whole meetings. In your report, administration has provided 3 different options, one for 6:30, one for 3:30, and one for 1 p.m. for start times. For 6:30 p.m., that's our current practice, so no real changes, or there's really, no changes to our current process. A start time of 3:30 p.m. That council requested would see we would see a value of about $3,600. And when I say value because staff attending council meetings typically are not. How do I say this? Are not paid to attend council meetings. They receive time in lieu for attending council meetings, and the senior management team typically they receive extra time for also attending council meetings. So there is minimal costs incurred dollar-wise, I guess, for staff attending those meetings. So that's kind of what the numbers are based on. The numbers are based on a number that the Director of Corporate Services provided council with earlier this year as a result of an admin inquiry. And that cost showed that it's approximately $5,000 value in staff time for council meetings starting at 6:30. I'm hoping I'm not losing anyone. A start time of 1 p.m. would result in all of the council meeting or all of the committee of the whole meeting taking place during normal work hours. So there would be no extra costs incurred by that. It's important that when council considers this decision that they take into consideration other factors such as the availability of the public to attend meetings, availability of all council members to attend the council meetings, and also work-life balance for council and staff. So with that, I'll answer any questions the best that I can and turn the conversation over to council for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Peterson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So I guess my first question, one of the things that we discussed when we had this in front of us before was the option of entering into this idea of having all of our presentations during the committee of the whole meeting and being able to, we discussed, I think CAO brought this forward, that there may be an opportunity for staff on one day a month to come in later and stay later And I don't see this as an option here.
Your worship, I would say in some capacity that is already happening with staff members. A lot of staff members come in later on Wednesdays because they have to stay later. It's really, it's almost no different than taking time in lieu. But I would say that that is happening in some capacity right now. It was not included in the report, though. I do apologize.
So if that was normalized, so that, staff, I think gets to work at 8 usually, 8:30. So if staff were to come at 10:30 and stay till 6:30, and we had a 4 o'clock start or a 3:30 start, we would almost be at the start time of 1 o'clock. We would sort of be at an equal impasse. Am I correct in that? So that could be an option that we could consider. And I guess what I'm asking the CAO, I am very concerned about this whole idea of work-life balance, balanced off against saving money. So I don't want to do something that steps into your realm as our chief operating officer. I just don't want to do that. So I guess I'm looking for some guidance from you. I'm looking for advisability around this because it does impact staff, and I'm looking for that ultimate balance.
Mr. Thackeray.
May, through the chair, to Councillor Peterson, you raised excellent points. We understand, and we're really very grateful that you're willing to consider that. We try to strike a work-life balance with our teams, and we, as Ms. Sawatsky said, we do try and flex so people can start late, finish late, things like that. Our job is to support council, and so at the same time, we're here to support you in what works for you, and we try and work around that as best we can. So we understand there's many right answers here, and we are more than happy to try and work around you and do the best we can. And absolutely, we would have no debate changing the dates because
The times?
thank you, the times. Because getting home earlier, that's not a bad thing, at least in my case.
Okay.
But we're here to support council. Thank you.
Just a follow-up question, if I might, Your Worship? Just to this point?
Actually, if I could just go to Councillor Sobel
Well,
first.
Just a
and-
clarification on the point, Your Worship.
Sure.
So then, just for clarification's sake, if we were to be able to do that, we would not be engaging then in time and a half or time in lieu?
Certainly for senior management, there's no, we don't do that. For some of the staff, it's quite workable that they could work a modified shift with some notice, because they don't come in all the time. What's unforeseen is we can't anticipate necessarily what comes up to council, and sometimes we will have to pay.
Trial basis?
Yeah, it's a trial basis. So if I may, would it be worthwhile for council just to try it for 3 months? If that's your wish, if you wanted to try something different, because we don't know what we don't know. But I'm not trying to lead you one way or the other. It's entirely your discretion. but we certainly support the will of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thackeray. Councillor Sobel?
Thank you. I thought I knew what I was going to do with this when I first came to the meeting, but Councillor Peterson has raised some interesting ideas and suggestions. So I guess I have one comment and then a question. One is, the comment is in regards to lieu time off for staff. There is a value on that. And I don't think it's recorded here, but there is a value. So the 3:30 time, if that was to happen, and bearing in mind that we're just speaking of the committee of the whole, and I acknowledge that things happen that change the best laid plans, but as a CAO, do you envision and do you feel that we would be successful in focusing our committee of the whole meeting on staff reports to council?
Sure.
May I ask a question through the chair to Councillor Sobel?
Yep.
Just to clarify, Councillor Sobel, are you referring to, can you help me understand when you're just saying staff reports, are you talking about presentations? Are you talking about, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, we have a bit of a, for lack of a better word, a little bit of a hodgepodge. We have some issues that we deal with. We have delegations set for committee of the whole. We have issues to vote on that could invariably be left to a regular council meeting. And what I guess I'm getting at is there a possibility and a desire, if we go to a 3:30 start, that we would change our philosophy and focus as much as possible to staff presentations and reports, and basically make it a staff information session. And I'm trying to take into account the need to be concerned about the public having to attend, and of course that is an issue. But if we left those with the public focused on the first and third Wednesday of the month, we may be able to deal with that in that fashion.
Through the chair?
Yep.
I think, if I may, it is certainly possible to focus committee of the whole meetings on preliminary reports and issues, and particularly if there's a very more strict time, because those reports would be delivered what would be typical office hours, sort of 8 to 4, 9 to 5 kind of stuff. It would perhaps take a little bit of a readjustment to the committee of the whole. The focus could be also put more focus on preliminary reports, because committee is not designed to make decisions, it's designed to hear and discuss and kick some things around in a less formal structure. And if council was amenable, as we've been discussing, to move to a consent agenda, some of those things could be done through consent. So you could take a list of reports and you could adopt through a consent agenda, which would be a more effective way to do it. The risk of some of that is, and I've seen this, is on the flip side, is then it's seen as the deliberation gets focused on the committee, and then the action is placed in council, and sometimes people want to focus the discussion at council or the public. But arguably, council's role is to pass resolutions and bylaws as prescribed in the MGA, and that's really what a council meeting is for, is to transact business. So we could emphasize committee to be more of a, I can't think of the word. Information gathering, information disseminating, discussion, and that's what it's meant to be. For learning how to inform decision making at council, and it is it's entirely possible, but it would be at council's discretion, and if you wish, we could propose a bylaw change sooner, because we are proposing to take a consent agenda forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to point out that, again, I am one of the ones that works full-time, so it affects me. And as I said in the last meeting, when first reading was, or when the motion was brought forward, I am sympathetic to the cost. I also am sympathetic to an earlier start time as well as staff and so on and so forth. So I'm not in favor of the 1 o'clock start, but I am in favor of the 3:30 start. Or am willing to try the 3:30 start for 3 months, recognizing that the $5,000 being $60,000 a year savings goes down to $17,000. So I'm fine with a compromised start, just like I said the first time. But again, I'm not in favor of the 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Councillor Corbeil.
Thank you, Your Worship. I hear what Councillor Cox says, and I know that we have talked about compromise and everything else, but me as a mom, 3:30 to 6:30 is a busy time. My kids, that's when everything happens, so it's almost like that's my job. So I would be in favor of the 1 o'clock start. I can't. 3:30, it's pushing it for me. I would be in favor of the 1 o'clock start. I don't know. I feel I'm torn. I really am torn. I guess I don't know. I was gonna make a motion for the 1 o'clock start and see what the vote went. I guess I can. Or I can hear what everybody else has to say first. Lorraine, Councillor Bauer, do you want to talk first?
Councillor Bauer, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to thank Deputy Mayor Montgomery for bringing this forward. I really support these types of financially responsible motions and appreciate the transparency that this provides our public. I had time to reflect on the personal impact that this motion would have on me, and I realize that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. I think it's going to be incumbent on all of us, in light of budget cutbacks, the recession, the political climate, and lack of certainty for the future, to really look at what we're doing and what our current practices are, and sometimes try things and do things a little bit differently. My hope would be that further to that, and further to this motion, that our Town of Strathmore staff also look at their own practices and see if there's a way that they could cut back their staff costs by streamlining duplicacies and overlaps, and look at, meetings that they're having that are taking their time. And I know that our CAO is very good at just looking out for people and really striking that work-life balance. From what I'm hearing, it's going to be really helping our staff. My initial concern was that with delegations, that they wouldn't be able to get here, and that because we've had such a, it's been kind of heavy on delegations with committee of the whole. I was reluctant at first because I thought that that might be impacted, and I really do enjoy that part of our meetings. But with what Councillor Sobel brought up and Councillor Peterson, I think that by looking at the types of meetings that we're having and making them more informational rather than, well, you know what I mean. I think we're still going to be able to do the same at the other two meetings over the month. And so I would be in favor of a 1 o'clock start in light of those points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Peterson.
I guess my concern in this is that I'm not in favor of changing anything that's going to cut anybody out for people who entered into this election understanding what the context was. I'm very much in favor of saving the money. I'm very much in favor of benefiting council and work-life balance, but I am not in favor of something that's perceived as being unfair. So if it cuts Councillor Corbeil out because it's a 3:30 start, if a 4 o'clock start would be better and would accommodate that, I would be open to it. I am not prepared to vote for a motion that's going to cut Councillor Cox out of her position. I see no benefit. I'd be very happy to vote for a Saturday morning meeting. I know that screws with the work-life balance of our staff, but I have no life, so that'd be fine for me. And so yeah, we could move our meetings to the arena. So I think unless we can come to some kind of a compromise in this, some kind of a real and meaningful compromise, I don't see this as being a useful exercise.
Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, and just a point of clarification, there was the 3:30 time was mentioned as a savings of $14.50, when in fact, if the.
Costing $14.50.
Yeah, there's a change here. Jen has.
Your worship.
Ms. Sawalski.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, when I, gave the report, the change is, it's actually 3,600, approximately 3,600, not 1,450. There was a calculation error.
Cost $36.50?
Or save.
Or savings of $36.50?
It would be a cost of 3,650.
But what if we change the hours?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any difference what that cost is, but the fact of the matter is, if we were able to go to flex time for staff on there, then that number bumps into a savings of 5,000, just like the 6:30 time.
Yeah.
And it's a point. And I will repeat the fact that these are 11 meetings a year, and they're on video. And that's not to detract the fact that I want everybody at this table as well. But I really would like to, with everyone's permission, to give this a shot for 3 months, just to see how it works. The 3:30.
I have a motion to this effect, Your Worship.
Did you want to read a motion?
I would move that council implement a change to the time of committee of the whole meetings to 3:30 PM, and that this change be implemented effective January 2019 for the committee of the whole, and that this process be reviewed for all the, for efficiency savings and any other considerations on the committee of the whole meeting of March 2019. 2020, and that final review and decision be made at the June 2020 committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Thackeray, did you want to say something? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Would anybody like to speak about that?
Just a point of clarification. I'm sorry, Councillor Peterson, did you say to review it in the March committee of the whole meeting?
And
get the information back? I guess I'm just wondering. Yeah, sorry. And the follow-up question to that is, if it's not working, then we have to wait till June?
No. So we could cancel it in March. We can review it, we can cancel it then.
Okay, I'm sorry, then I misunderstood.
So to be reviewed in March 2019, and if we, or, sorry, 2020, and if we decide to continue on, then do the final in June. But if we decide not to, we end it in March. We end it if it's not working. So we have a 3-month review date, preliminary review, go forward or not, and then possibly 3 more months, and then see.
I guess I'll speak about this. So initially, when I brought this forward, my main focus was the savings that could be derived from changing the committee of the whole meeting, which, if we were able to save the full amount, it would actually be between $50,000 and $100,000 per year that we could save, which is anywhere from 0.5 to 0.75% of a tax increase that we could be saving our residents. And that's, I think, very important to this whole council. And I don't think anybody on this council makes this decision lightly or takes this lightly. I personally, I'm not for the 3:30 as my first choice, simply because it makes it so that the meetings are not likely to finish within normal business hours, and will cause, I think, undue interference into. I think we lose the benefits that we would see. We would still save some money, it's true, but we would lose other benefits such as providing a better work-life balance for the town of Strathmore employees and even the council itself. And so I think that, and that's a very important factor to me on top of the money that we would be saving. And I want to, I guess, emphasize the sacrifice that the town staff make, but also the members of council, regardless of what time the meetings start. And so, yeah, so I guess for that reason, I want to emphasize that we don't take this lightly, but at the same time, I think that we would be possibly watering down whatever savings could be derived and whatever other benefits could be derived. And as far as I think we can kind of change the meetings so that we can better accommodate the public as far as taking in delegations by having them come in on council meeting days if daytime meeting times didn't work for them. And also to the point of public attendance, I actually expect that, especially with the town hall being located downtown, I expect that daytime meetings would actually draw in a number of people from the public that would not be able to entertain coming in the evenings, and so I think that there's more positives that can be derived by an earlier start time than 3:30, and with less complications and with more benefits. Thank you. And seeing no other people that would like to comment, I will call a vote. All in favor of the 3:30 start time? Oh, opposed? I don't know what's going on here. All right, well. Councillor Peterson.
Your Worship, I would move that council implement a change to the start time of the Committee of the Whole to 8:45 a.m. and that this change be implemented effective January 2020 for the Committee of the Whole, be reviewed for savings and efficiencies at the March 2020 Committee of the Whole, and that other considerations relevant to these proposed changes be examined at that time, and that if council so decided, the change could be eliminated or continued at that time, and finally, that a final review be held for final decision in the June 2020 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Would anybody like to speak about that? I'll say something. I mean, like, I'm frankly, I'm kind of, I'm blown away, actually, that,
We would be in favor?
no, well, to be honest, so I thought about going before lunch, but I was concerned about the, sorry, what? Oh, I was concerned about the prospect of running into lunchtime, but I believe we would actually be able to accomplish what we are all here to accomplish and what we're all trying to accomplish here. And I would actually be in favor of this wholeheartedly. Sorry. All right. Well, actually, so Councillor Cox, if you'd like to say something.
Again, for the purposes of being inclusive to all of us, it allows me the flexibility to work later in the day if I need to. And should I have to leave at 11 o'clock, at least I've made it for a couple of hours. So I will support that on a trial basis.
Ruining my retirement sleep in.
It is, not mine. And it does make life bearable for Melanie as well.
Councillor Sobel?
I just invite our CAO to weigh in on this if I could, and I'd like to get administration's view on this. I'm good with this.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I just clarify the resolution, please? The resolution, as I understand it, is 8:45 a.m. start. January to March, 3-month trial. And then a review in March. If the intention would be to either continue or eliminate it at that time. And should it move for another 3 months, at that time, it would be a final decision, would be on June 2020 for your decision.
Thank you. Yep. Thanks for the clarity.
That's what I understand?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. To your comment, I don't think there'd be any opposition from staff, because again, we're here to support council, and we'll do the best we can with what we've got, and we're happy to do that. And it certainly, it works fine for me, but thank you.
Councillor Bauer?
I really support this motion. When I was looking at my calendar, I get more calls in the afternoon than I do the morning. And I get booked more often in advance for afternoons than I do in the morning. And this is, I love it. And I look forward to seeing these people awake. It would be a nice change.
You mean council?
Thank you.
All right, well, so we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? And that's carried. And yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody here for, and Councillor Cox, thank you very much. I appreciate your sacrifice. Thank you.
You guys like it?
Speaking as the one who probably has most of the staff coming to it, this makes a pretty big difference for a lot of my staff in terms of even those who don't have presentations but who want to get a feel for council. One of the things my staff often tell me is they want to get a feel for council more and hear how you guys debate, see how you guys discuss. They think it makes them better. So this.
They don't watch us?
We'll all keep our illusions alive, but this will make a pretty significant difference to their ability to understand you as well. So I think there'll be some benefits that we haven't thought of yet. So thanks, council, very much for.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, again.
Great idea.
Councillor Cox.
I just want to make this a valid point. If I'm here at 8:30, I expect some staff to fill our chairs as well, right?
Mandatory.
All right, and we'll go ahead to the 11.1 AUMA resolution. And Councillor.
Maybe Jenna.
Ms. Swatsky.
Yeah.
Sorry, Your Worship, thank you. There was a bylaw amendment proposed in the package for tonight to implement this. However, I think that we'll bring that bylaw amendment to the next council meeting. Just, we have some time because it's January 2020, just to make sure it's actually in there and right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And did you want to speak to this resolution, or did you want Councillor Peterson? Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the 2019 AUMA resolutions book was sent to us by Ms. Swatsky, and on page 52, our Town of Strathmore Diagnostic Medical Imaging Guidelines resolution is here. So we have to decide who is going to present this resolution at AUMA, number one. And then the second task is that Ms. Swatsky ordered me to prepare some background notes, and Councillor Sobel followed that up by saying, and make it so that people can understand it. So it's sitting here before you today so that you can take a look to see if those mandates have been met. And so those are the two things that we have to look at. Who's going to speak to the motion? I believe that our intrepid mayor made sure that Okotoks is seconding the motion. And my hope is that we'll have good support. I'm suspicious, so I have a feeling that, because Councillor Montgomery Deputy Mayor Montgomery got our motion through last year, it'd be good to do it again. But these are the speaking notes behind it. I'm very grateful to Dr. Ward Fanning, who is today in Nepal. Before he left on Sunday night, he met with me and went over this and gave us some additional support. So if there's any questions, any further, so if Councillor or Deputy Mayor Montgomery was to introduce the motion on the floor, these points would be for the rest of us. I don't know if you know if you remember how the speaking arrangement goes at AUMA. The motion is presented. If you look at the very bottom, it says AUMA doesn't have a policy position on this. However, it looks good, so my hope is that there would be nothing preventing it. And then if there was an opposition speaker to the motion, then that would give us an opportunity to bring another speaker in behind it, and so on, so that we do have these speaking points here before us if we did need them. Thank you.
Councillor Sobel.
Thank you, Your Worship, and we haven't discussed this, but I'd really like to see you present this, Councillor Peterson. This has been your topic from the beginning, and you're the most familiar with some of the ingredients of this. I don't want to force you to do anything you don't want to do, but I'd really like to have you do that if you were able.
Thank you, Councillor Sobel. But I think that the motion is presented as it stands, and I might be better suited to speak to the motion if there's opposition. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's why I would rather have Councillor Montgomery present it, and then if in the event that we met with opposition.
I hear it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need to move this? Okay. All right, well.
Did you look at it? I'd just be interested because.
Councillor Barra, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. In light of the fact that you were able to do this last year, and I really see it as a big growth opportunity, I really enjoy participating in these types of activities and seeing how the governance of AUMA works. I would like to ask whether or not you would be amicable to me putting my name forward, and I would like to try and present this motion at AUMA, please.
I'm so happy that other thing passed that I'll agree to anything right now. So, no, I think you would do a great job. So yeah, I would be happy to see you up there, and I think you'll do a good job. So.
Bang job. Thanks.
Yeah. I guess can we get a motion to go?
No, administrative inquiries?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I gotta turn over my agenda here. All right, Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 3 admin inquiries this evening. The first is from Councillor Peterson. It's in regard to Lambert Park. It reads, is it possible to close off the Lambert Park parking lot each evening, especially during this time of lake remediation and construction? This administrative inquiry is coming forward as a result of a complaint regarding increased noisy late-night activity in the Lambert Park parking lot. I have not confirmed with RCMP that a recent complaint was made regarding this, but I have confirmed with residents of Lambert Village that the issue is ongoing and much worse than when it was happening in Kinsman Park. The close proximity of the ruckus parkers is seriously impacting quality of life for the residents of Lambert Village. The second administrative inquiry is from Councillor Sobel. And it reads, I'm wondering if there are any restrictions or policies in place that pertain to the installation of benches with advertising on public, in brackets, town-owned property. And the third admin inquiry is from Councillor Montgomery. It reads, please report on what the mill rates would have to be using current budget numbers if the 50% premium on non-residential tax rates were in effect right now. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Worship.
Councillor Sobel.
I know these aren't up for discussion, but it's incumbent, I just have to make this comment in regards to the parking, and I don't understand why we don't do this. But I used to work in Ottawa, and we used to look after all the parks in the parkway, and there was probably a dozen or 15 parks. And there was a no parking sign listed on each one of them from 11 to 7. And what we used to do is drive through and making sure that nobody was parked there, and if they were parked there, to get them to move. So I don't understand, I fail to understand why we are not using that type of project at both Kinsman and at Lambert. Because the problem with the police not doing anything is they can't do anything. If we had no parking sign there, they could move everybody out of there. So I don't understand why, and I've brought this up a number of times already. Anyway, that's all, just a comment.
I'd like to, if I could, Your Worship,
Sure.
speak to, as well to Bob. I've noticed over the course of the year as well, that we get a lot of, and maybe you don't notice it because you guys don't drive down there yet, but there's a lot of motorhomes and or campers that also park in that park overnight. And when we do improvements, it's going to get worse. So I also agree, because if there was a sign that says no parking, then they won't park there. But there isn't one, so they park there.
Ms. Sawatsky.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just for information, we do have a parks bylaw that does prohibit parking overnight in the park, and it also has, I can't tell you what time it is, but there is a open and closing time for the parks. So if it's as simple as putting up a couple signs, I don't see an issue with that.
Mr. Roycroft.
Your Worship, we're happy to order 4 signs and put them up. If there's a bylaw in place. Done. Yeah, we'll just order 4 signs and put them up.
Yeah, beautiful.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Send Mr. Bratton.
Councillor Bauer.
What am I doing? Sorry, it's almost the end of the meeting. I'm losing it. Your Worship, if I may, please, our CAO led me to believe that when I submitted an admit inquiry a few months ago, that there was no motion attached to it because I did it in a committee of the whole. And you know the one I'm talking about right now, the one about the extra nuisance, the things up by the hi-ho. Could I please, during this meeting, just make a reference to that and possibly ask if that could be looked at? Because if I don't do it during a regularly scheduled meeting, then it will not be looked at again, and it will just go by the wayside. So if I may, please just ask administration if they would, through a motion, from council. Please look at the bars that are located just off of the green space at the Hi-Ho on Park Lane Drive. And if be found out whether or not that's on town property or their property, and then look into the removal of those sign posts. I think it's going to be really good for us to look at that entire area around Kinsman Park if we're going to beautify it, and look at what's adjacent as well. So that's why I'm bringing that up.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Would anybody like to?
Just ask the administration.
All right, fine. All right,
I move to be go in camera.
all right, we have a motion to go in camera.
thought that was a motion.
Oh,
Yeah, like she did say, like, I would like to make a motion. Well, no,
Or we're not in.
so, you said I would like to make a motion, right?
She didn't make a motion. I did say that I would like to direct administration, and then I said I'd make.
I didn't hear the motion, I just have a black hole in my brain. Okay, it's a motion.
Yeah, like, that's what I
I will make
heard.
a
Sorry,
motion
Your
if I, yes.
Sorry, but you can also do that by direction.
Can I just do that by direction, please?
Yeah.
I would prefer not to make a motion.
So would you like
just
to
ask.
withdraw your
Thank you.
motion?
She didn't
She's just-
really make a motion.
She's just directing administration. I move we go in camera.
I read that procedural bylaw for nothing. All right, I have a motion to go, it was a motion, right?
Yes, it
Okay,
was.
a real motion to go in camera. All in favor? At 0 o'clock. No, I mean 9:25.
I don't think we can go past 9:25 today.